big nation is. There are small and nations have Shakespeare's, Ingmar Bergman's, Fellini's, and Juris's, and it just doesn't happen very often, and everybody knew him. I think basically people loved him.
Who would have heard of Finland if it hadn't been for the music of Sibelius? For me, Podnieks is, in a way, the Sibelius of Latvia.
He was there at an incredible moment in their history when their story was turning on its head. He was their eyes, he was their voice for the outside world, and I think they recognized that as a voice, as a pair of eyes, they couldn't have had anyone who was braver, more courageous, and more able to interpret what was happening.
I think Podnieks speaks to everybody through his films. He made the films he did in the way he did because he was a Latvian at that moment in history. Small countries emerging from a period of suppression tend to be defined very much in terms of the oppressor. He's a person who, in a very profound art form, expressed the genius and the dilemma of this small country. Nobody could have done it better.
I do not know if the threats to us will end, but I do know that time certainly has turned us from a blunt stick into a sharp stake. And if somebody now does try to destroy us, they will find themselves severely injured. For no longer are we a blunt and decaying branch as we were 5 years ago. We have become a fine and sharpened pike. Only time will tell.
This moment when I meet Juris was very nopietns cilvēks. Ja? Un es biju tāds hippie puika, kas spēlēja, mācījās muzikas skolā. Un nebija vēl tik nopietnas kā Juris, jo Juris bija sācis jau filmēt savus pirmos darbus, un tas saucās viņa kursa darbiņš. Viņš noķēra mani, ka es klaiņoju Jūrmalā, un mēs vesels bariņš dabujam visu dienu notupēt kafejnicā. Mums bija pa brīvu kafiju, cepumi, un Juris daudz filmēja, radīja mākslīgo apsarmojumu logam, un acīm redzot, viņam bija tā tīra kino operatora kursa darbs. Tā bija pirmā satikšanās ar Juri.
Why was he so straight compared to you?
Why? I am a musician.
But he was a filmmaker.
He was, yes. But when he worked, I learned.
Tāda absolūta, varbūt tad,
pašapziņa zinām, ja, kas man tā tieši piesaistīja, un tāda pārliecība, ka viņam ir kaut kāda misija vispār. Es pat neteiktu vīzija par savu dzīvi, bet drīzāk tāda misijas apziņa. Bet Juris jau no paša sākuma, kad mēs iepazināmies un kad it kā mēs grasījāmies tad aprecēties, teica, ka viņam vienmēr un tikai pats galvenais būs viņa darbs un kino, ja? Un tā kā visas šīs sadzīves problēmas, es jau biju gatava tām, un tādēļ mēs nekad tās tā necentāmies absolutizēt. Tās it kā bija un paši no sevis, kā tas vienmēr dzīvē mēdz būt, viņas tika it kā atrisināts, un es domāju, ka mums nebija tāds ļoti smags, kas tā iespaidot mūsu dzīvi.
In those early days, did you talk together about his films being a political weapon, or was he simply concerned in creating art?
Juris jau no paša sākuma, kad mēs iepazināmies, viņš strādāja, tomēr dokumentālajā kino, bet tajā laikā viņš bija īsts tā saucamā Rīgas poetiskās kinoskolas, jā, tāds, skolnieks. Un tajā laikā jau Latvijā vispār varēja visu tikai izteikt arī politikā, tikai caur tēliem, simboliem.
I realized that Juris was coming from a background and a school of filmmaking that was very much, he would hate me say it, a Soviet, a Russian style. Way back when I was young, I studied films like Battleship Potemkin and others, and Juris was coming from that background, from that heritage. And there was a whole heritage there of letting the images of speak and to engage people's emotions and not just their intellect. There wasn't one cut in it, there wasn't one edit, but within that 10 minutes, there was every emotion there from those children, from horror, from terror, from anticipation to relaxation to happiness as they watched a puppet show. And I mean, I think that was the first, one of the early indications in Juris's work that he had an eye for people and was able to engage people in a way that I think was interesting.
Yes, he was a cameraman. He had worked with the director Hertz Frank, whom he always regarded as his teacher. Hertz had this idea just to film like an emotion of a child, and it seemed quite hard to realize it. Then Juris just said, hey, I know how to make this film.
First went to the studio, Juris was already working there. What was his reputation like in the studio then?
I think he was already, he had proved that he will be something, because I think, well, I don't know how he came to the studio, because at that time I wasn't yet there. But actually, I had an image that he is like, you know, he is already young and famous.
I went to Moscow in the early 1980s to find a project which we could do, which would test what glasnost and perestroika were all about. So off I went with no real image in my mind, and very quickly met one or two people in Russia who found this kind of liberal attitude towards, I don't know what I want to do, but I'm just looking. Not really what they wanted. And very much saying, glasnost has just come. You can't go around thinking about what you do. Do it. It may not be here for long. We've actually got to make decisions. And one of those people was Lev Gushin, who at that stage was the first deputy editor of the biggest paper for young people in what was then the Soviet Union. And he said, if you want to see a real documentary, go and see this film called As It Is to Be Young. And I'll arrange tickets. Interesting, the first film I saw, which I thought was Juris's, I came halfway in, was so bad that I turned to Bronwyn and said, are you sure Lev thinks this is good? And it was a kind of look at life, which was, I didn't know because it was all in Russian and I had no idea at all. It was beautifully done on black and white 35mm, so it looked quite grand, but my goodness, it was very, very, very ordinary, as you can well imagine, old movie tone stuff. And then on came Juris's Is It Easy to Be Young. There was an extraordinary energy in that film, which just burst out of the screen.
For some, we were an entertainment. For some, we were something repulsive. But nobody understood. No officials, no adults. Well, no adults understood what we were about. Till now, nobody realizes why we donned the studded leather and took on the aggressive title of a punk. We simply wanted to make everyone see, yes, we're shit, rubbish. We're tattered and bedraggled, but we're your children, and you made us this way. By your dual morality, your righteous words and slogans, which we can see you all invert in practice.
Do you think our society needs a phenomenon like punks?
Excuse me, but it's created them itself by everything it's done, and now it's trying to wipe them out. If society doesn't change its attitude to youth, then others will take the place of punks. I don't know what they'll call themselves, skins or something else. And then the same thing will continue, but only in another form.
Ko jūs domājat par Juris Podnieku?
Katrā ziņā tad, kad es skatījos to, vai viegli būt jaunam, tad... Es nezinu, liekas, viņš cilvēks kaut ko reāli pateica.
Viņš teica to, ko citi nebija teikuši?
Jā, kaut kas. Nē, faktiski pat nebija tā, ka viņš teica to, ko citi nebija teikuši, bet... It kā visu laiku par to bija runāts, bet viņš kaut kādā savādākā. Ļoti savādākas pozīcijas to visu paskatījās.
It was first moment when he became as man at first, and then as cinema man, as editor, director, and etc. It was a starting moment for his career, and of course it was first challenge for society too. It was something new, and it was starting of maybe of perestroika in our culture.
I wanted to find out where Juris had come from, what actually enabled him to make Is It Easy to Be Young so different. So I went to Riga to look at his film studio, and it was when I got into the theatre, when I saw for the first time this enormous great screen in a very big theatre with lots of seats, with my knowledge that there were just him and his boss there looking at his rushes. And it was at that stage that you realized that what he was trying to do was to fill this screen and to go from the Steenbeck to an enormous size, and he had to fill it. And that was the beginning of my understanding of what made Juris such an extraordinary filmmaker. He'd sat there, he'd wondered, he'd often, in the Steenbeck, tried to work out what it was going to look like when he actually took it onto the big screen. I honestly don't know whether it was Gorbachev had seen the film and said, this is an illustration of what glasnost means, show it. But it was clearly a film which was used by the post-glasnost authorities to shock. They knew that this was the most positive way of saying, we have changed, our attitudes have changed. But Juris didn't make it with that in mind. He just had to make the film, because there was no indication Gorbachev would come in and make so many changes.
We had problems here in Latvia when our KGB man came. I'll never ever forget the moment how this guy from KGB, he was taking pills out of his pocket and his hands were shivering, and he said, it's absolute rubbish, why you can't show the film. Yes, it was very funny. And the director of the studio said, congratulations, you've made another film for the shelf.
The KGB and the Central Committee didn't approve of that film and indeed wanted changes. You saw the film and you said nothing. Now, what did you hope to achieve by that?
Taktika bija tāda, jo es jau nebiju, man tas galavārds nebija, bet taktika bija tāda, lai tie, kas saka galavārdu, lai viņi pateikt jā.
It was so strange. Juris said, hey, something is wrong, because you don't have to cut out anything, we don't have to redo anything. They sat in absolute silence in Moscow.
Vadoties no Latvijas PSR Krimināla procesa kodeksa 299. un 3. panta tiesa nosprieda Raimonda Ploriņa Edvīna dēla, dzimuša 1966. gada 8. decembrī, galīgo sodu noteiktrības atņemšanu uz 3 gadiem, sodu izciešot pastiprināt režīmu labošanas darbu kolonijā, sodu skaitot no 1986. gada 28. marta. Piedzīt no Artas Vilāna Jāņa dēla, Ginta Rešņa Ulda dēla, Raita Maternieka Ulda dēla, Gunta Līdes Imanta dēla, Raimonda Ploriņa Edvīna dēla, Beātas Dančenaks Leonarda meitas, Jolanta Grīnbergs Aivar meitas, solidāri, par labu Baltijas depo 5548,89 rubļu. Tiesējumam Svilānam skaidrs spriedums ir Gintam Resnim, Raitim Maderniekam, Guntim Līdem, Raimondam Ploriņam skaidrs spriedums. Arestējiet, aizvediet tiesējumā lūdzu līdz terminieku. Dančēnokais
He used his hands a lot. He used his hands, he used his eyes, he used his facial expression. And he was a handsome guy. And he used his power to get into places, just his physical, not strength, but the fact that he was a big guy with a big camera meant he got into the courtroom. Not given permission to get in the courtroom. What else do you do with a guy who was like this? And he used everything in a way which allowed him to get round corners. And enjoyed it. And he enjoyed watching people almost come under his charge.
Nē, protams, jā, līdz ar zinām vecumu, teiksim, ja, man vienmēr ir paticis šis viņa darbs, ko viņš ir darījis. Ja, tas bija ļoti interesanti, vai ne? Un viņš arī, teiksim, no agrām dienām man ir ņēmis līdz uz dažādām filmēšanām. Ja, tā, ka, es domāju, ka viņš arī savā darbā, par cik es tur tomēr lielā mērā bija iesaistīts tajā darbā. Tādā ziņā, kad es tur biju reizēm ar viņu un tā tālāk, un es aptuveni zināju, kas tas viss tāds ir, ja, tad, es to uztveru arī tur kā ļoti normālu parādību, kad viņš mājās un visā sabiedrībā mums ar viņu bija ļoti labas attiecības, ja, un es vienmēr viņu tā uzskatīju kā tēvu. Ja. Izņemot, tad, kad es pats strādāju, tad darbā konkrēti, bet visās pārējās vietās un atmosfērā mums bija savstarpēji, es saku, ļoti labas attiecības tādas.
What was he like as a father? Did you play football together and things? Did you play sports together?
Sportēt kopīgi?
Jā. Basketball.
Basketball?
Basketball.
Was he good at it?
Es biju labāks, jo es esmu trenējis.
What did he do to relax? Did he cook?
Jā, protams, viņš ļoti labi to darīja. Viņš vienmēr savus draugus uzcienāja. Un raksturīgi, tad, kad viņš braukāja, teiksim, uz Uzbekiju, tad viņš pēc tam atbrauc labi gatavoja plovu, viņš atbrauc uz Grūziju, viņš gatavoja kaut kādas grūzīnu ēdienas, un Anglijā viņš iemācījās daudz ko ķīniešu virtuvē, jā, tā kā viņš vienmēr mūs pēc tam pārsteidz ar kādu jaunu.
Tas viņam bija hobijs.
Jā, tā viņš arī atpūtās īstenībā. Es domāju, ka praktiski gandrīz nekā, tādu atvaļinājums nav bijis. Es domāju, ka viņš tā pie viena tas bija darbs, un tā bija arī atpūta, ja, tas nemitīgie kontakti ar kaut kādiem cilvēkiem. Jo viņš speciāli, tā nekad neteica, jā, tagad sestdien, mēs tagad atpūtīsimies, mēs brauksim tur peldēties, vai kādreiz jau tas tā arī bija, un šad un tad, protams. Bet tāpat laikā viņam atkal tur bija kaut kādas noskaņas, un tad viņš atkal skrēja tur kaut ko izdarīt.
I think this was Juris's madness, Juris's craziness, Juris's absolute love of filmmaking, of the work, what he is doing, and again, his absolute workaholism, so to say. And he was sometimes even saying, well, maybe I could become, I don't know, writer or whoever, but I'm not sure I'll be able to do as much as I can do as filmmaking. And this is my weapon, and I have to use it, and I have to use it properly, and I will use it.
I think Juris was something that's almost a contradiction in terms nowadays in 1993. That is, he was a liberal nationalist. He was a man with liberal instincts and a nationalist persuasion, given that he was a Latvian, and that was then a small oppressed nation.
Where do you think that came from, the liberal aspect? Because he, like everyone else in Latvia, was exposed from his birth to the enormous Soviet propaganda machine.
Well, at a glimpse of blue sky, the bird flies free, and I think Juris saw enough, travelled enough, learned enough very early in life to understand the nature of the great collapsing beast he was pursuing with his camera.
When Richard first met with Juris, it was March, as far as I remember, and Juris came back from Moscow saying, hey, some English now wants us to make film for them about Russia, something a la Russia, yes. But Juris didn't have the slightest idea what to do, how to do, and what it can be.
I wasn't saying, this is what I want the film to be about. I was simply saying, over the next year, extraordinary things will happen. Why don't you record those things? And at the end of the day, fashion a film that you and the people working with you want to make. That's what you should be doing. I have no idea what's going to happen.
In September, it all started. It started Latvia, Romania, Moscow, Yeltsin. And so then Juris said, okay, if I can make the film I really want, then I'm doing this project. And Richard said, yes, do whatever you want.
I knew that Haladu Harris had to be very, very much different, a long way up the ladder from Instinct to be Young, simply because he had much more film available, which was what he wanted so much, and because he could come and have much more time editing. So for me, it was less surprising for anybody else.
С чего начать? Все трещит и качается. Хрупкое летоисчисление нашей эры подходит к концу. Спасибо за то, что было. Я сам ошибся. С чего начать? Все трещит и качается. Хрупкое летоисчисление нашей эры подходит к концу. Спасибо за то, что было. Я сам ошибся, я сбился, запутался в счете. Голова моя качается под облаками. Но чувствую, как слабы ноги. Асана, 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 асана. Asana, asana, asana.
I think the first one I saw left me with three impressions, really. Firstly, this is somebody who can see the Soviet Union as a whole in its disintegration as a great kind of sweep, like some huge novel. And for that same reason, secondly, one will want to go back to it time after time. And you can always go back to them and take them off the shelf and watch them again, because they're tremendous social documents about a period of history. And thirdly, I think I was just bowled over by his technique, by the excitement of it, the brashness of it almost, and by the way in which he was never obvious or moving in a single direction, so that there's a sequence where the church is being revived. Now, almost everybody else at that time would have made a sequence which was entirely about the horror of the churches being destroyed, the wonderful romance of the fact that there were now novices and seminarists coming back into the scene, and there were the devout crowds. What you remember from Podnieks' film is that there's a little boy who's pissed himself in the crowd because he's trapped in this terrible ritual, and that there is still not a proper contact between the priests and the people.
How was Hello received in the Soviet Union?
Not terribly well the very first time. And that was a lot because of Yeltsin. Remember when Hello first went out, Yeltsin was being pushed down by Gorbachev. And Juris was one of those very few people who recognized that he was enormously important. When you look at the interview of Yeltsin, you absolutely know in a second that there were soulmates there.
Ну, а вы готовы бороться дальше? До самого последнего. До жизни. Ну что, сняли с одной должности, с другой должности. Ну, конечно, так сказать, мне обидно, и это удар я очень тяжело перенес. Но, тем не менее, я своим принципом все-таки я не поступлюсь.
Николай! Николай!
Борис Николаевич, ну, аппарат, привилегия, власть, не стали ли вы на тропу войны с серьезным противником?
Это самосожжение определенно здесь есть. Я говорю, что мне надо, дайте 3 года. Мне надо столкнуть этот ржавый большой маховик. Его надо было повернуть немножко. Он бы пошел потом как большой медведь. Он бы потом сам пошел. Он как бы сам стал эту ржавчину, которая у него на зубьях, он бы своей силой стал ее чистить. Понимаете? Но надо было вот эту дать первоначальную, так сказать, инерцию, что ли.
Но вы не успели это сделать, я понимаю.
Ну, все-таки люди какую-то веру почувствовали. Понимаете? А это вера, это большое дело.
One of Juris's overwhelming strengths was the way in which he allowed a documentary to see time move forward. And in a way, Chernobyl was another of those very, very live illustrations. He'd gone not just to the side, but then he took us further. What Juris did was to persuade the management that he should be allowed to film at the last minute that it was being completely blocked in with reinforced concrete.
Nu, ejot iekšā, mēs pirmkārt zinājām, uz ko mēs ejam. Ja? Es runāju par iešanu 4. blokā. Ja? Viss tā procedūra, pārģērbšanās, viss tas tā, bet faktiski pat mēs to apjētām, ka mēs esam 4. blokā tikai tad, kad mēs pēkšņi ieraudzījām pulti, vadības pulti, apklāt un tur tā. Tai brīdī līdz tam viss tas likās tāds joks, par joku to pagrūti nosaukt. Ja, sajūta bija tāda. Ja tā bija nākošā diena pēc manas dzimšanas dienas. Un otrā dienā līdz ar to ir grūti, ir viss kaut kas un tā tālāk. Bet pati sajūta bija ieraugot šo pulti, apklātu, izārdīt, izvarot. Un tad vienkārši tu apjēdz, ka tu esi tur. Un kad nu pat ir. Bet teikt, ka kaut kāda, teiksim, pārējais josla, nekas tam līdzīgs tur nebija. Vienkārši stāvēja viens zaudātiņš, kurš tur bija. Ja? Līdz ar to tas it kā mazināja visu to baiļu sajūtu. Baiļu sajūtas faktiski tādas vairs nebija, ja, jo it kā jau tie orgāni jau bija jau atslēgti savā ziņā. Tu zināji, kur tu ej.
And he is counted down by the Chernobyl people who say you've got 10 seconds to get out, 9 seconds to get out, 8 seconds to get out, hurry up, you've got 7 seconds, 6 seconds, you've got to leave, 5 seconds, 4 seconds, 3 seconds, and still Juris and his team were filming.
Laikam visbriesmīgāk bija tad, kad tā izdzirdējām, ka tur bija tāds teksts trici žostki, ja? Respektīvi 30 rengens tādi cietie, ja? Kur pat tie vīri, kas mums gāja līdz, teica, lasamies ātrāk prom. Nu tad, bet arī faktiski atkal tas pats variants, ka to ieraudzīja materiālā un to izdzirdēja materiālā, un tad atkal paliek tā jocīgi.
I think everyone was there for too long. Everybody involved in that showed the courage of Russians and Ukrainians and others in that extraordinary part of the world, and Juris was very much part of that. And many of those people are dead, and a lot of those people are very ill. I would absolutely accept that Juris was one of the most courageous people I know, but then I've worked with a number of filmmakers who have extraordinary courage in the way in which they go to places and the way in which they tackle interviews and the war zones they go to. Very few of those people would accept the word courage. It's not their word. And if Juris heard me saying, gosh, he was courageous, he'd think, what a wimp.
Any filmmaker and any man who is brave as a filmmaker constantly pushes the limits. Juris continually put himself in danger, and if you continually put yourself in that situation, ultimately you run out of chances. If you look at the footage that came out of Lithuania, there was Juris himself filming, and some of the other cameramen were there, and they were beaten by Soviet Interior Ministry troops. And later, in Riga, 2 of his cameramen, Andres and Fido, were killed.
I must have arrived at the scene of the gunfight Sorry, it was not even a gunfight. I mean, the crowd had no arms. When I arrived at the scene of the gunfire, it was evident that the Black Berets were firing on unarmed civilians to keep them away from the building they'd come to seize back, the former communist headquarters. I'd been in situations like that before, but it just didn't compare. I'd never seen heavily armed, trained soldiers open fire on their own people who were unarmed. It didn't compare. I mean, it's difficult to recreate the sense of complete horror, abhorrence, injustice of that night. What became evident as the evening wore on was that they were deliberately targeting people with cameras because they're bulky. They may have claimed they looked like weapons. I find that difficult to believe. It was terrifying.
Tad, kad sašāva video, ja, un es biju pie blakus koka, ja, tas bija, nu, bailes pārlīst šo te celiņu līdz viņam, ja. Jo tas moments atrauties no tā koka, ja, kad pa tevi šauj un līst, man jāsaka, bija bailes, ja. Un bailes ne tik daudz, ja, man bija bailes to, ka, nu, arī mani sašaus un sakropļos, ja. Man bija bailes, ka man nošauj, ja, bet šie te 5 soļi, ja, tās bija vienas bailes. To nevar pateikt, saka, tie 5 metri, saka, tā baila sajūta, tik no viena līdz tā. Kur ir?
Arī pagaid. Nu trāpīja.
Šonakt tika.
Tonight, Andris Slapinch was shot and died in my arms. A cameraman I've worked with for many years. And another colleague, Guido Zweigsner, has also been wounded. I hope he won't die. We'd all gone out to the battlefield to look for the truth with the help of a camera. That was our only weapon. Like everyone else around, we were unarmed. We went there as free people. Those who shot at us are slaves of the system and are just puppets in the hands of a power that is trying to keep itself alive. This army, this system that has been strangling us all these years. There's not a lot I can say about these murderers. They are just slaves and murderers.
Andrēts, es to nepiedošu nevienam, es to apsolu.
Viņš vienkārši pateica, ka tad, kad nošāva Andri, praktiski nošāva arī viņu.
Un ļoti iespējams, ka Juris to sakot domāja arī par to, ka tāds puisīts, kāds viņš bija līdz šim, viņš ir nomirs. Jā, mēs taču tā arī sakam, ka ir sācies jauns cilvēks, jā. Un patiesībā kopš šīs nāvas viņa rokās, jā, viņš droši vien, ka viņš sākās cits cilvēks. Es tā vismaz domāju.
I saw him very briefly the following morning, and like anyone in that situation who'd lost someone so close to him, he was wandering around in the daze, but still trying to get the news out, trying to get the story out. He still hadn't lost that focus, that passion.
he was still a passionate filmmaker, and I think he still had a number of things he wanted to say, things that he wanted to witness, things he wanted to record. And I think, given the bugle call, he would be and would have been right there again. But nonetheless, there is always a moment when you've lost someone who was very close, who you worked with. There must be a moment where going out to make another film without two people who had died before is quite a difficult moment to actually summon up the emotional reserves to do that.
He was saying after End of Empire, that's it, and no new quality. And we had lots of arguments, and I was saying, hey Juris, you're doing the same things, the same way, and you all the time are saying you want to do something new. And he was shouting at me and saying, well, what can be new? You take camera, you go and film. And there is sound, there is no sound, there is a color picture, and there is black and white picture. All the same elements. But when he was saying this, I felt that he was angry. I remember him last these 3 or 4 months before his death. I think he was in a way, he was empty.
When you talked to him at that stage, what he talked about was how tired he was. And there was a fatigue in the relationship between Latvia and Russia. They had been trying for so long as countries and individuals to change, and it was almost there. It's like reaching the summit of a mountain. And that was happening in his own life, as well as it was happening between those two countries. And that last, most difficult climb, from his point of view, made him so tired that he made this massive, absurd, stupid mistake, which is what killed him.
I'd like to be able to say it was something dramatic concerned with film, but I think he was diving for lobster at the time, and I think that one of the great ironies of life was that, having come through many of those confrontations, he died not in a war situation, but on a diving expedition.
My fondest memory of him is the amazing discovery that if you had an evening talking to him, the life that you saw was all of a piece with the film.
Bravery, courage. He poured himself into the films. Warm, passionate, sometimes abrasive. The films are shot through with Juris.
Juris was such a blast of fresh air because his films didn't give a damn about being impartial. Not only partisan, but passionate. I'm sure if Juris was around now, he would have found an injustice. He would have found an outrage. He would have found a cause.
There is no doubt that Juris was an extraordinary man, and he died far too young. But as I look back, I know that the one thing we mustn't do is make an idol out of Juris. Juris was one of us. Once you make an idol of people, you start to try and shatter it in time. And there's nothing in Juris to shatter.
He's now like excellent example, and you can now say, hey, I'm doing it as he was doing. Is it good enough to say this film has been made in Juris Podnieks studio? We now have to work also for Juris.
Once Juris said to me, why do angels fly? And the answer is because they make it look so easy. And that's what Juris did. That's how Juris made his films. It looked so easy, but you know and I know that it was incredibly difficult.
It was our holiday, midsummer solstice, but the most beautiful time in the year. And the night was beautiful, fog and mist in the morning. We had some strange feeling on that day, 23rd of June. It was like, okay, he's in trouble. Something is wrong, definitely. Monday, Tuesday, and I don't know, it was another film. The divers were looking during the daytime. We were just crawling around all the lake. Divers couldn't find him. And it was a feeling, hey, we'll find him, he'll find him that very moment. And the chief policeman, he came in and said, well, we found him. And this was like the end of the story, because all the time we had this hope, maybe some miracle will happen, and again it's Juris's way, it's Juris's style, and it didn't happen. So that's it.